So you would like to know why to use the paper-backed method for mosaics? Well, you're in the right place. I'm Helen Miles and I'm here to teach you all the tips and tricks you need to make mosaics. So this video is about why to use the paper-backed method for mosaic. The paper-backed method is one of the less known and talked about methods, but it should receive a lot more attention than it does. Basically, the paper-backed method involves placing your tesserae upside down onto strong brown paper. So you can see that these tiles are upside down because you can see the ridged backs of them. And so you place them upside down using water-soluble glue, and when the mosaic is finished and dry, you prepare a concrete base, flip the mosaic side down into the concrete, dampen the paper, and then peel it away. So the huge advantage of this method is you end up with a completely flat surface, and it's the #1 method to use for floor mosaics. Another big advantage of this method is that you can easily correct mistakes as you work. Since the glue that you're using is water soluble, it's just this flour and water paste. So I've just heated the water, added flour and mixed it up until it gets to the right consistency. I've made a separate video about that, so I'll link it below. Anyway, so it's a water-soluble glue. So if you do make a mistake, you can go back to it and simply take a sponge, one of these thin sponges that you get in the supermarket for wiping surfaces, and just cut a little piece to the size of the area that you want to change and dampen it under the water. So this is slightly damp. And I'm just going to, let's say, I don't like the colour of the eye, so I'm just going to put it under the eye and press it down so to make sure that the moisture gets through the paper, and leave it for a minute or two. After it's had time for the moisture to seep through the paper, the pieces will easily come away. So there you go. I've just taken the eye out. And then obviously I've got a little damp patch there, and I can either just leave that to dry or get a hairdryer and give it a quick blow, and that will dry it in a second. So the fact that you can make changes so easily is an enormously positive thing, since the mistakes in mosaics are much harder to correct in using other methods. The third advantage of the method is that it is ideal to use for large-scale mosaics and community project work. The fact that you're working on paper rather than a firm base like Weddieboard, wood or Hardybacker means that the size of your mosaic is not limited. So this is just one section of a large-scale floor mosaic that I made, which was of George and the dragon. So there's the dragon's head and a little bit of the horse's foot and the spear. And this is another section which has the face of St. George. As you can see, the paper, the large design, has been cut into sections which are easy to work with. So imagine if you're working on a community project where you have lots of different people who don't necessarily even have to be in the same location. You can cut up your design and allocate out the different parts of the mosaic for different people or different groups to be working on it at the same time. The other really good thing about being able to cut mosaics like this, or indeed to using paper, is that if you need to extend the mosaic for any reason, if you need to add another piece of paper onto the mosaic, then all you have to do is get some gum tape like this and glue the sections of the mosaic together. So it's very versatile and very practical method of working. However, like all good things, chocolate and cheese being obvious examples, there are disadvantages to the paperback method too. The first disadvantage is that you're working in reverse. So if, for example, you were making a threshold mosaic and you wanted to have lettering and numbering on it, you'd be working on a mirror image of your design and looking at it from the back as you work. And this can be confusing, certainly at the beginning until you get used to it. Another disadvantage is you have to use materials which have the same colour all the way through. So if you look at these Winkelmans and Chinker tiles, which are specialist mosaic materials, then whether you're looking at them or at the back or at the front, they have exactly the same colour. So obviously if you're working in reverse, you can easily see the colour that you're working with, which is great. However, if you had a tile which was glazed on one side and matte on the other, because you're working in reverse, you clearly wouldn't be able to see the colours as you work, which makes things like these kitchen tiles more or less impossible to use. Nevertheless, the advantages easily outweigh the disadvantages. The fact that this method gives you a completely flat surface that you can walk on, that you can easily correct mistakes, that the size of your mosaic is pretty much limitless, and that you can cut it into workable sizes and different people can be working on the same design at the same time, but possibly at different locations, means that the paperback method has an awful lot to recommend it. So if you want to know more about the paperback method, including how to make the glue, then please follow me and subscribe below. And also there'll be lots of videos about other tips and tricks to make mosaics.